911 police, ambulance or fire.
Hey, check this out. I just came from McDonald's, right? This broad is trying to break out the fucking house next door to me. She like, this motherfucker that kidnapped me and my daughter, and we've been in this bitch. She saying everything.
Sir,
you know what I mean?
Sir, you have to calm down and slow down. Is she still in the street?
Yeah, I'm looking at her. She right now. She calling y'all. She on another phone.
Cleveland 911.
Hello, police.
You need police, fire, or ambulance.
I need police.
Okay, and what's going on there?
I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years, and I'm here. I'm free now. I'm across the street. I'm using the phone.
Okay, stay there with those neighbors. Talk to the police when they get there.
Okay.
Okay, talk to the police when they get there.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, talk to the police when they get there.
Okay, I'm gonna wait now. I
We're
need
going
them
to send
now.
them as soon as we get a car open.
No, I need them now before we get back.
The chilling 911 calls you just heard were made in 2013, after a woman made a daring escape following nearly a decade in captivity. The news didn't just shock the Cleveland, Ohio neighborhood where she had been held, it stunned the entire world. As more horrifying details about the House of Horrors came to light, the story became even more unbelievable. The nightmare began in 2002, when 21-year-old Michelle Knight left a family member's home on August 23rd. She was on her way to a meeting about regaining custody of her 2-year-old son, Joey. But as she tried to figure out where she was going, she got lost. That's when a man stopped her on the street, someone she recognized as the father of one of her friends. Trusting him would turn out to be the worst mistake of her life. Michelle's life had already been tough. Growing up in a struggling family, she spent much of her time caring for her siblings. She claimed to have been abused as a child and teenager, and by the time she was 14, she couldn't take it anymore. She ran away from home, choosing to live on the streets instead. Eventually, she decided to return home and finish high school. At 18, Michelle became pregnant, allegedly as a result of an assault, and soon gave birth to her son, Joey. Despite her efforts to be a good mother, she lost custody of Joey in 2002 after an incident involving her mother's boyfriend, who reportedly injured the toddler while intoxicated. Joey was placed in foster care, and Michelle was determined to get him back. On that fateful day in 2002, Michelle was on her way to a custody meeting when 42-year-old Ariel Castro pulled over and offered her a ride. Since Michelle knew him casually through one of his children, she agreed. Castro, a school bus driver and local musician, seemed friendly. He even offered to give her a puppy for Joey, which made Michelle excited. But there was no puppy, was all a ruse. Castro had likely been planning to abduct someone for a long time, and when he saw Michelle walking alone, he saw his chance. When they arrived at Castro's home on Seymour Avenue, Michelle had no idea she would never be allowed to leave. Once inside, Castro attacked her. He tied her up with an extension cord, gagged her with a sock, and told her, "You're not going to leave for a long time." Michelle begged him to let her go, telling him she needed to get back to her son. In response, Castro tore up the only photo she had of Joey and told her she'd never see him again. For days, Michelle was kept chained in the dark basement, with a motorcycle helmet over her head to muffle her screams. Castro assaulted and beat her repeatedly, playing loud music to drown out her cries. At one point, he even gave her a pit bull puppy named Lobo. But when the dog tried to protect her, Castro broke its neck in front of her. This was just the beginning of the unimaginable horrors Michelle would endure. Castro lived alone, so there was no one to stumble upon Michelle. His ex-partner had custody of his 4 children, and none of them lived with him. When Michelle's mother, Barbara Knight, reported her missing, the police assumed Michelle had run away again, especially since she had a history of doing so. Her case was eventually closed, and her name was removed from the missing persons database just 15 months after she disappeared. Meanwhile, Michelle's son, Joey, was adopted by another family. Michelle's life became a living hell. She was starved, beaten, and subjected to unspeakable abuse. Castro controlled every aspect of her existence: what she ate, what she wore, and even when she slept. He made sure she knew he was in charge, and any attempt to escape was met with brutal punishment. At one point, Michelle tried to flee, but was so badly injured that she was too scared to try again. 7 months after Michelle was taken, another young woman's life would be shattered. On April 21, 2003, 16-year-old Amanda Berry was walking home from her job at a fast food restaurant when Castro pulled up beside her. Amanda recognized the man as the father of a friend she knew from middle school. When he offered her a ride home, she accepted, thinking it was safe. But once inside his house, Amanda realized she had made a terrible mistake. Castro chained Amanda up in the basement, just as he had done with Michelle. He told her if she stayed quiet, he would let her go. But it was a lie. Amanda's family reported her missing, and her mother made desperate pleas for her safe return on the news. Amanda watched these pleas from Castro's basement, feeling helpless and terrified. Castro's cruelty knew no bounds. He kept Amanda and Michelle separated, ensuring they couldn't band together against him. He manipulated them, playing mind games to keep them under his control. And just a year after taking Amanda, Castro abducted a third victim, 14-year-old Gina DeJesus. Gina's disappearance shocked the community, and Castro even joined the search efforts, all while knowing exactly where she was. For over a decade, these 3 women endured unimaginable suffering in Castro's House of Horrors. But their story doesn't end here. Stay tuned for the next part, where we'll uncover how they finally found a way to escape and bring their captor to justice. Michelle was the most defiant of Castro's captives. She constantly talked back, refusing to call him by name, instead addressing him as dude. Because of this, Castro despised her the most. But Michelle never broke. Later, she would say, "He wanted to break me, but you can't break someone who's already broken. You can only make them stronger." Despite everything, the women held on to hope. Some believed their families would never stop searching for them. Others found strength in fantasies of revenge, like poisoning Castro with rat poison. At first, the 3 women were kept in separate rooms. But on May 23, 2004, Castro gathered them together, not out of kindness, but to force them to watch an episode of America's Most Wanted featuring Amanda and Gina's missing persons cases. It was gut-wrenching. Their families were shown on TV, pleading for their return. Gina was devastated and later said she couldn't stand Castro after that, but had to pretend to be his friend to survive. Michelle, however, received little to no media attention. Castro used this against her, tormenting her by saying no one was looking for her. Seeing Amanda's mother constantly on the news begging for her daughter's return only made Michelle feel more abandoned. Castro cruelly told her, "Aren't you glad I took you?" After being brought together, the women spoke whenever possible, despite Castro forbidding them from talking. He put up gates to separate them, but they still whispered through the barriers. When he locked doors, they slipped notes and pictures under them. On rare occasions when he left them alone, they tried to create a sense of normalcy, dancing, singing, or watching The Vampire Diaries on TV. Sometimes Castro allowed them outside, but only in the yard or garage, and only while wearing disguises like wigs or helmets. Things took an unexpected turn when Amanda turned 20 and suspected she was pregnant. Unlike with Michelle, whose pregnancies he had brutally ended, Castro let Amanda carry her baby to term. On Christmas Day 2006, Amanda went into labor. Castro set up a small baby pool for her to give birth in and forced Michelle to assist. Instead of helping, he sat in a rocking chair reading a baby book. The birth was difficult, and at one point, the baby wasn't breathing. Castro threatened to kill Michelle if she didn't save the child. Desperate, she blew air into the baby's mouth, reviving her. Amanda named her daughter Jocelyn, and despite their horrific circumstances, the baby became a source of joy for them. After Giselle's birth, Castro started calling Amanda his wife and referred to them all as a family. Unlike the three women, Jocelyn was occasionally allowed outside. Castro took her to the park, church, and even to visit his mother, Lillian Rodriguez, who Jocelyn called Grandma. Rodriguez never questioned where the little girl had come from. In August 2009, the women saw a breaking news story that stunned them. J.C. Jugard had escaped after 18 years in captivity. They were glued to the coverage. Yet when one of them pointed out the similarities between Dugard's case and their own, Castro brushed it off, calling her captor crazy. Still, he asked, "Are you girls going to write a book about this?" As if he was invincible. Castro's arrogance was staggering. He occasionally had friends and family over while the women were locked away. Once, his daughter Arlene visited while the women were hidden in the basement. They considered screaming for help but were too terrified he would kill them. Another time, when police raided the house next door in 2010, they again had a chance to call for help, but were too afraid to take the risk. On yet another occasion, he hid them in a van while guests were over. Gina's stepfather, Fernando Colon, had actually warned police about Castro, telling them he had a violent past. But the tip was ignored. Instead, police suspected Colon himself. In another eerie near-miss, Castro's other daughter, Angie, once received a disturbing voicemail. Someone had pocket-dialed her, and in the background, she could hear a young woman screaming, "Get away from me," alarmed. She reported it to the police. They traced the call, but ruled out Castro's phone. Gina's mother later insisted it must have come from him. In 2012, police thought they had finally solved Amanda's case when a convicted murderer, Robert Wolford, falsely confessed to killing her. He even passed a lie detector test and led police to a supposed burial site, which was only a short distance from where Amanda was actually being held. As news cameras broadcasted the excavation, Castro's brother Pedro was seen scoffing, saying, "What a waste of money." Then, everything changed. On May 6, 2013, Jocelyn went downstairs and quickly ran back up, telling Amanda, "I don't find Daddy. Daddy's nowhere." Amanda realized something else. The door to her room was unlocked. After a decade in captivity, she knew this was her chance. She rushed downstairs. The front door had an alarm, but it was the storm door that was the real problem. It was padlocked shut. She managed to pry it open just enough to stick her arm through and started screaming for help. Upstairs, Gina and Michelle hesitated. Gina feared Castro had caught Amanda and, terrified, begged Michelle to stay with her instead of running to help. Outside, 75-year-old Aurora Marti heard the desperate cries. She ran to the house across the street, shocked to see a woman's arm sticking out. Amanda yelled, "I'm Amanda Berry." Marti, who spoke little English, was stunned. "You can't be Amanda. Amanda's dead." She tried to help Amanda open the door, but arthritis made it difficult. Just then, Charles Ramsey, a neighbor, noticed the commotion. "Hey, check this out," he said. "I just came from McDonald's." The man desperately tried to break out of the house next door. He grabbed the opposite side of the door and pulled with all his strength. When that didn't work, he began kicking at it, urging Amanda to do the same from the other side. She followed his lead, and after several attempts, the bottom panel of the storm door broke away. Amanda crawled through to freedom. Sir, you need to calm down and slow down." "Is she still in the street?" "Yeah, I'm looking at her right now. She's calling you." She's on another phone with her 6-year-old daughter in her arms. Terrified that Castro would return, Amanda ran to a neighbor's house to call 911. Despite being surrounded by people, the fear of her captor still loomed large. Her call went through at 5:52 p.m. "Hello, please help me. I'm Amanda Berry. I've been kidnapped and missing for 10 years. And I'm here. I'm free now. All right, stay there with the neighbors. Talk to the police when they arrive. Dispatch alerted officers. We have a female on the line who says her name is Amanda Berry. She states she was kidnapped 10 years ago. She's still on the phone and claims the suspect is Ariel Castro. Police were dispatched immediately, arriving at the house at 5:54 p.m. It's just 2 minutes after Amanda's call. As they pulled up, a woman holding a small child flagged them down. The officers quickly realized this wasn't a hoax. This was Amanda Berry, the missing girl from the flyers. Then Amanda revealed something even more chilling. She wasn't alone. There were others still inside the house. 2 officers forced their way through the same crack in the door Amanda had escaped from, prying open the storm door to let more officers inside. They checked the basement, first empty. Then an officer ascended the stairs and called out, "Cleveland Police." Michelle, unaware of what was happening below, hesitated before summoning the courage to open the door. As soon as she saw the officer, she ran into his arms, sobbing, "You saved me. You saved me." "Don't let me go." Overcome with emotion, the officer held her tightly. Then Gina DeJesus emerged from another room. For the first time in over a decade, the 3 women stepped outside, finally free. Michelle was now 32, Amanda 27, and Gina 23. Meanwhile, police broadcast a description of Castro's vehicle. At 6:16 p.m., just as he pulled into a McDonald's parking lot, he was arrested and handcuffed. One of his male relatives was in the car with him. Shortly after, police arrested his 2 brothers, Pedro and O'Neill, on suspicion of involvement. However, investigators later determined that neither brother had any knowledge of the kidnappings. While many found it hard to believe that no one around Castro knew his secret, authorities stated that there was no evidence implicating them. Legally, people are not always required to report a crime, unless they are mandated reporters, aid in committing the crime, or actively conceal a felony. The latter, known as misprision of a felony, is a form of obstruction of justice. The shocking rescue made headlines worldwide. But instead of celebrating her newfound freedom, Michelle was rushed to the hospital, suffering from severe chest pains and breathing difficulties. At just 84 pounds, she was so frail that police initially mistook her for a child. Doctors discovered she had a bacterial infection in her stomach. If she had remained in captivity just a few more days, she would have died. The physical toll on Michelle was devastating. Due to Castro's relentless beatings, she suffered permanent facial bone damage and lost her ability to have children. Years of confinement in darkness also left her with lasting vision problems. One of the worst assaults occurred when Castro broke her jaw with a barbell, but none of the physical wounds compared to the psychological scars. She had contemplated taking her own life many times, but found strength in thoughts of her son. In the aftermath, the horrors of Castro's crimes continued to unfold. Neighbors came forward with disturbing stories. One recalled seeing a naked woman crawling in Castro's backyard years earlier and reported it to the police. Nothing came of it. Another neighbor, Israel Lugo, heard pounding from inside the house in 2011 and called the police. Officers arrived, knocked, and when no one answered, they left. Police admitted to visiting Castro's house twice in the past 15 years, but claimed neither visit was related to the kidnappings. Disturbingly, Castro had a history of criminal behavior that went unchecked. In 1994, he threatened a neighbor with a shovel over a property dispute. In 2004, as a school bus driver, he was charged with child endangerment after allegedly telling a 13-year-old boy to lie down while he went inside a Wendy's restaurant. The charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. He was later fired in 2012 for abandoning his bus in a fire lane for hours. Most troubling was his documented history of domestic violence against his common-law wife, Grimelda Figueroa. Over the years, she suffered broken bones, dislocated shoulders, and a lost tooth from his beatings. She once escaped and called the police, but Castro threatened to kill her and their children if she testified. Tragically, the abuse took its toll. Figueroa developed a brain tumor from repeated head injuries. Castro's trial was a showcase of his delusions. He claimed to be addicted to adult content and insisted, "I'm not a monster. I'm sick." He falsely stated that the women were treated well and that their pregnancies were terminated by mutual agreement. In reality, police found chains, ropes, and other evidence proving his brutality. His defense entered a plea of not guilty, but he later accepted a deal to avoid the death penalty. On August 1, 2013, Castro was sentenced to life in prison plus 1,000 years for 937 counts of kidnapping and assault. Less than 2 months later, on September 3, 2013, he was found dead in his cell. He had hanged himself using a bedsheet, his shorts around his ankles, initially leading to speculation about autoerotic asphyxiation. However, inmates confirmed he had lost weight, causing his clothes to slip down frequently. He left behind notes citing religious scripture and doodles of his family's names inside hearts. For the women he imprisoned, his death meant their nightmare was truly over. But rebuilding their lives was no easy task. All three suffered from complex PTSD after years of psychological and physical torment. Michelle, who had been held the longest, was the first to speak publicly. She legally changed her name to Lily Rose Lee and published 2 books about her experience. She hoped to reunite with her son, but ultimately accepted that his adoptive family was his home. She later married in 2016 and started Lily's Ray of Hope, an organization supporting survivors of abuse. Amanda, now a mother, was finally able to raise her daughter in safety. She began working on behalf of missing persons, hosting a segment about Cleveland's missing persons cases. Gina pursued long-awaited goals, earning her driver's license and returning to school. She became an ambassador for Ohio's Amber Alert and founded the Cleveland Family Center for Missing Children and Adults. While Amanda and Gina remained friends, their relationship with Michelle faded over time. Castro had spent years trying to pit them against one another, and the wounds left behind were not easily mended. Still, all 3 women have used their trauma as a driving force to help others, proving that despite the horrors they endured, they emerged stronger than ever.